Principles. Throughout this video, we will be learning to farm by watching Timothy and his wife Esther, as well as their nephew Abel. The three of them grow maize and other crops a short distance from the city, but your farm could be bigger or smaller and might look different. It doesn't matter. The principles you will learn will be the same. The 4 principles of our farming method are to do things on time, at standard, without wastage, and with joy. On time. Being on time is very important. Every operation that we do should be done at the correct time and in the correct season. Ecclesiastes 3 verses 1 to 2 says, "There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot." God is always on time and is never late. For example, the longest day of the year is always the 22nd of December. This never changes. The most important date for us as farmers is the 25th of November. This is the best date to plant maize to get a good crop. If you plant before this date, the plants can take advantage of the best growing conditions, the ideal amounts of sun and rainfall. If we plant after the 25th of November, we lose a huge part of our yield. This graph shows how much of our harvest we lose when we plant late. As you can see, you lose 120 kgs of grain per hectare for every day you plant late. Timeliness is so very important. Let's not waste the opportunities that God so freely gives us in His natural creation. At standard. This means that everything we do must be done well at a high standard which glorifies God. God does His work at a high standard. Look at just about any aspect of nature and you will see that God has produced our world at an incredibly high standard. Look at the mist, the sky, the moon, the soil, the sun. God certainly produces a good product. We can see examples of God's high standards in the Bible. For example, in Ezekiel 40 to 42, Ezekiel meets with an angel who has a measuring rod in his hand, and he goes on to precisely measure every aspect of the temple. God loves detail and precision. In order to achieve high standards, we need to pay attention to detail. It is the small things done together that make the biggest impact on improved yields. The precision of placement of planting stations, the depth of the holes we dig, the quantities of inputs we use, how many seeds we place in a hole, how deep we cover the seed, all add together to produce high standards. If we try to do things really well, this glorifies God. It is a form of giving that God sees. This is the whole basis of implementing and achieving high standards. Without wastage. Waste is unnecessary loss. If we waste the good things God has given us, it means that we are being unfaithful with them. We have already seen that God will take away from us if we are unfaithful. If we look at creation, God is not wasteful. For example, nothing is wasted in the natural processes that God has made. Plants and animals die down and decay, forming food for the next generation of plants to grow on. These plants grow and are eaten by the next generation of animals. Nothing is wasted in these wonderful natural cycles. Some of the things we waste are natural elements such as water, soil, nutrients, seed, and sunlight. We can also waste things like opportunities and time. By not wasting these elements, we will be faithful to what God has given us. With joy. Many people live in a great deal of despair. But those of us who know God have a great deal of reason to hope and not despair. Though we encounter trials and suffering, we have a great God who loves us and purposes good things in our lives. Jesus has won for us the hope of heaven and glory. We can see that our joy arises from hope. When we do things on time, at standard, and without wastage, hope begins to dawn in our hearts as we see that we can make a success of our crops. This hope leads to joy, which is our strength. Joy is also a natural consequence of doing things on time, at standard, and without wastage. And joy encourages a higher standard of work ethics. All of a sudden, we will find ourselves no longer grumbling, complaining, and blaming others for our demise. But we will have joy for our work, and we will want to work even harder, be more on time, at a better standard, and with less and less wastage.